So the first plugin we're going to talk about is really important. It's called Wordfence. So Wordfence is a comprehensive security plugin that provides a much stronger login to your WordPress admin area. It provides a really good firewall to block nefarious traffic. It will scan your site for problems. It has a very easy mode where you have very little technical knowledge to use it. And it also has quite a bit of customization available if you need that as an organization. So pretty much the number one way WordPress sites are hacked is because of a weak password, weak login. Someone has a bad password and they use it in 30 places and they never change it. So the two-factor authentication is nice. Wordfence will allow you to force people to have good passwords or force them to use two-factor. So, they have to get a text on their phone and enter that code, that kind of thing. It's great at blocking unwanted traffic too, which can actually speed up your site quite a bit. If you have a bunch of nefarious traffic from Pakistan trying to hack your website or something, you can actually just block the entire country. And if you are a nonprofit that serves a small local community of people, there's no reason to even need that traffic. You're not going to want that traffic. So there is a free version, and I highly, highly recommend if you have no security plugin whatsoever, you use the free version of Wordfence. In fact, we basically put this on every single website that we develop, every single one. And if you kind of don't know how to configure it and you have some questions, they do have a mode you can click on, which is just this learning mode, and it will analyze all of your website traffic and how your website's being used and kind of intelligently come up with what it should block. And it actually works really, really well. So here's kind of some stuff about the firewall. It has a great firewall where you can really prioritize the traffic coming to your site, or if you see bad stuff, you can just block it. Like I said, it has this auto learning mode because sometimes the firewalls and stuff like that are kind of hard to understand for non-technical people. And then the scanning system is really good as well. So here's one way you can actually help yourself keep on top of plugin things like we were talking about before. So these scans will do a bunch of different things. The free version is very basic, but it's very useful. And one thing it will do is it will tell you, hey, this plugin's out of date, or this plugin has a known issue, or this plugin was totally removed from the WordPress directory, which is a really bad sign. That means something's not good with it. It's either not being updated or there's some problem. So the scan is really nice too. So check out Wordfence, definitely one you hopefully should be using. Another one, we won't talk about it too much because it's anti-spam, but there's a plugin called Akismet, and this is one that's kind of officially worked on by the WordPress group. This is spam protection. So for your comments and stuff like that, if you have comment section or you're collecting content from visitors, major sites use this, actually, huge news sites, and a lot of people use this. So it's a very good spam filtering. It's free too. They offer a premium version if you want. I'm not going to talk about this one too much because actually almost none of my clients have any kind of comment system. Most of their blogs, they don't have a comment box. But if you collect comments and have user-generated content, this is a really good tool for spam. Because if you have any kind of user field where people can put in stuff in your website, you will get spam. This is a really good plugin. This is called Admin Menu Pro, and this is a plugin for customizing the user permissions on your site. So you're probably familiar with WordPress's basic types of users. There's like an admin, which can do anything. It can delete your website, delete your theme, add plugins. Then you've got editor, which can kind of work with all the content. Then you'll have like a writer, which can just write but not edit other people's content. So there's different user levels, but with this plugin, you can create your own user levels, which is amazing for nonprofits, because say you have a volunteer coordinator and they're a volunteer themselves, and you don't want them to be able to edit your entire website, but say you have a section for volunteering or something, you want them to be able to manage that. Well, you can create your own user type then called volunteer coordinator and give people the ability to edit just that area. And so it's really easy the way it works. Here's kind of a view, and you can see across the top there we have SEO or SEO manager, SEO editor. We have these different user types we've added that are custom, and you just check off the parts of your website you want them to be able to use and the different features. It's a really great way to do that. It's a very easy interface, and it works really well. So the idea with WordPress users is typically you only want one admin user. And I bet all of you here probably have more than one. But you really only want to let one person typically, have the power to delete your website. You don't want anyone to be able to do that. So the custom permissions is a really good way to give people the ability to manage what they need to manage, but not too much. You want to give people just enough privilege to do what they need to do and nothing else. So this one, probably a lot of you are familiar with it. This one is Gravity Forms. So Gravity Forms is a form plugin. It's extremely powerful, and it's almost become kind of the de facto standard now. There are some other form plugins, but this one is huge. And we've been using it forever. In fact, this is another one that we just give away to every single client who we build their website, we host it. This is part of the deal because it's so useful. And really, it's the best way to build forms. You can build simple forms. You can build quizzes. You can do polls. You can create sort of worksheet type things. You can have very long forms where people can kind of save their progress and come back to it. It has your basic simple fields like text and numbers and select boxes, but it has really advanced fields as well. So, they have an address field, and you just add that, and it will add the city, state, zip, all that stuff. Monetary fields to make sure that they people put in a number that's a dollar amount. And you can actually sort of use it as a very simple donation / e-commerce system if you use a plugin for this that will allow you to do that. You never want to just create a Gravity form and have people donate through that, put their credit card money in it, because Gravity Forms data that people input is not encrypted and not safe. However, there is a plugin for Gravity Forms. There's one from PayPal, for instance, which will let you sort of use Gravity Forms as a simple donation form, yet safely, and PayPal handles the transaction and kind of the storing of the credit card information. So it is sort of a lightweight. It can be used as a lightweight donation system. We don't usually recommend that, but people do that if you kind of need something quick and easy. This is a volunteer survey someone was working on. So the form editing is very easy. You have your main form you're looking at here, and you click on a field and have a lot of options like making it required or having a certain range of information people can put in, or if they check off one field, then another one appears. I mean, you can do very advanced things. And the different types of fields are on the right there. And you just click what type of field you want, and it will add it to your form, and you can configure the options. And you can just drag these form fields up and down to reorder them. You can have a page break and have multiple page forms. So it's very easy to do really cool form stuff. One of the really underutilized things too, which is very cool, is sort of the settings of the form. So when you go into your form settings, you have this kind of notifications area, confirmations area. So the confirmations, that would be what the user working on the form sees. They may get an automatic email back, hey, we got your data, here's what you sent us, whatever. Or you can have the form submission routed to different areas, which is really cool. So say you have a volunteer coordinator, and if someone selects the box, I want to volunteer, then they get the message. But if someone selects, I'm interested in employment, then someone else gets the message. You can route the email messages differently depending upon who sees it, or even send different people different parts of data. Say you have someone who is going to submit a form, and you want one person in your organization to see all that data, but you have maybe a volunteer and you don't want to show them everything. You can send the volunteer just a portion of that data. So I saw a question about, are the forms ADA compliant? Yes, they can be. However, the styling of your website and how your website includes the form also impacts your compliant level. So that's something you have to think about as well. But in general, the Gravity forms, if you use them correctly and your site is set up correctly, the coding and the styles and everything, it is extremely accessible and extremely compliant with different things. It has all the features to do that, but you do have to make sure you're using those features, like filling out the description of the field and all these different things, and the hints and all that. But in general, the code that Gravity Forms generates to be used for the form is very good. It's a very good, which is one of the reasons why they've kind of just become the standard. You can also, all the data that's input here too, you can easily export it, which is really nice. So if you're collecting a bunch of data in Gravity Forms, and say you want to put that in your contact management system or put that in your email system, you can export it. And there are actually many, many, many plugins for Gravity Forms for that data to just go there. So if you're using, if you're using Constant Contact or something, you can have the data that people fill out in a Gravity form go right into Constant Contact. So one we're going to talk about, this is another one that is officially supported and developed on by the WordPress kind of core group of people, is Jetpack. So Jetpack is basically the Swiss Army knife plugin. It does a ton of things, and it's very useful. Many of our sites have it on it, and they may only use one or two features. They may not use all 20 things it does, but it does a lot of things really well. So there's a free version. Most people use the free version. Some of the cool features, like if you want to have an automatic backup of your website taken every day, or you want to use a content distribution network, if you have sort of a worldwide audience and you want your site to be super, super fast, those are going to be paid, because that requires external services, to have your website backed up every day and put somewhere externally. That's an extra cost, extra service. So the main sort of free features people really use are the built-in stats. It's nice to be able to go to your website, go to a page, go to a blog post, go somewhere and just see stats, how many blog, viewers do you have, how many times is this post viewed or that page. So that basic stuff is built in. It's kind of nice. You don't have to go out to Google Analytics then or your other analytics software. It does some better media handling. It has some options for that, for like creating galleries, easily creating photo galleries, slideshows, things like that. The very cool thing it does is related posts. So if you have a news section, a blog section, you can have a little bar of other posts related to the one that people are reading, and it works really, really well. Actually, the posts that it chooses automatically are very well aligned with what people are reading. So that whole suggested content system works really well. And it has social sharing built in too. You can have a little bar of buttons so people can tweet or share on Facebook the posts they're reading, things like that. The stats are pretty simple, but it's just really nice to have them right there. And it's a little bit different way. It's very much focused on the content. What's the popular content? How many people are reading this post and stuff like that, which is nice to have. That's a nice thing. And so for the content, kind of the media handling, this is the WordPress editor where you edit your content. This is the block editor, the newer editor, what they call Gutenberg or whatever. And you'll see Jetpack has its own. If you have Jetpack installed, it will have its own set of blocks. You can do a map for your contact page really easily, some kind of map. You can do related posts easily. You can do all kinds of things like photo gallery, stuff like that. So that's pretty nice. Another really nice utility one, if searching is important to you, is this plugin called SearchWP. And SearchWP really greatly enhances the WordPress search. So the WordPress search, it's there and it works okay, but it's not, great. So the SearchWP will enhance the search. It will let you sort of slice up your content differently. If you want to search just the blog, you want to have a search bar, say in your news section, just search the news section or your products or your services or something. You can kind of create multiple custom searches and kind of use search much better, make your search much more usable. And it's very easy. You can just move these sliders here. They have this thing called the weight multiplier. So, you can move sliders and say, I want to put more emphasis on on the title or the content or page attributes. And for all the different types of content you may have too, if you have custom types of content, this is a very good way to search that and make it work really well. You may need to use a programmer or have a programmer to really fully utilize this and have some really cool custom things. The administration of this is very easy, but integrating it into your page, and say if you want to have a special search that is a very narrow part of your site, you may need a programmer, but it works really well. So actually, I already talked about that. So this is a great one too for performance. So this is a plugin called WP Rocket. WP Rocket has a whole host of site performance things. So obviously when a viewer comes to your website, you want your website to be fast, especially on mobile. You don't want people waiting for pages to load. But it is also incredibly important for search engine optimization, for SEO. If you want people to be able to find you through Google and just organically searching, Google puts a huge emphasis on site speed. So if you're finding that you really just aren't coming up in the search engines, people are not finding you, even though you have a lot of great content, you might want to look at the performance of your site. So this plugin, WP Rocket, has a ton of, and there's a free version and a paid. Pretty much most people use the free. It has a lot of site optimization tools. It will do caching and file optimization. So what caching is it will basically make a static copy of your page. So when a user comes to that page, the web server doesn't have to go through all the different things to construct this page and serve it to the person. They have a pre-built static version that's very fast. And then it also is great for WordPress maintenance just itself. It has a lot of integrations too with other systems like content delivery networks. We talked about that a little bit. It does lazy loading too, which is really nice. So the term lazy loading means that it won't load content and images and things like that aren't visible yet. So if it's great for mobile, because if a mobile viewer hits your website, almost all the content they're not going to see because they're seeing a very small portion of that page. So the lazy loading helps by not loading that stuff until people need it. So it can automatically compress your files. So websites are made with huge amounts of scripting files, all these different styles and scripts and different types of coding, and they can be very long. So it will compress all that down to increase the speed. And it has a ton of options. So it's very, very easy to configure out of the box. If you do work with a developer, they're going to know the best options, because it isn't sort of like a magic solution. If you take a very slow website that's kind of poorly constructed and you just throw this on it, it may not magically sort of fix everything, but it will definitely help. So we're working with someone who really understands how WordPress is constructed and has this plugin at their disposal. It will work really well. It'll speed up your site quite a bit. So another great plugin, which we pretty much recommend every single person use, is called Yoast. So there's Yoast and Yoast Pro. And many of our clients use the Pro version. The Pro version has some very useful things. But basically, this is a tool for improving your SEO. So when you install this plugin, you're going to have a basically a special section in your page content, which will show you the readability, what's the SEO score. You can edit the snippet that's in Google, so that you can see exactly what someone's going to see if they Google something and find that page. And the Pro version lets you put in multiple keywords for a page, which is really nice. Typically, a page is going to have a couple focused keywords, so you can put those in there. And then it has a great redirect system. So if you need to do a redirect for a page, so that's when a page moves from one place to another, or say you had 3 or 4 pages and you got rid of them and consolidated it down to a couple pages, then you can redirect those old pages in case there's links out there to them. And it sort of manages the crawler. So the crawler, meaning the Google, as they come to your site and do stuff, they're crawling your site. It manages the site maps and the coding and the stuff in the background that those Google crawlers and other search engines look for. It helps you manage all of that. So, and it is an easy way too to connect your analytics programs. If you want to do it that way, for instance, there's a page in Yoast which says, "Hey, put in your Google Analytics ID," and then you can just do that. So thoughts on Rank Math? I got a comment on that. I assume that's another SEO plugin. I have not used that one specifically, so I'm not sure about that. we've been using Yoast forever. And another thing about SEO is if you use sort of an external service, like say you use SEMrush or you use some other service, many times they will have their own plugins as well. And those plugins work pretty good usually. Let's see. So we're going to talk about, here's a tool that's really nice for email and social stuff. So, and this is actually a paid, there's a free version and a paid version, and this is actually part of an external service. I was just kind of talking about how many times external services you may subscribe to for SEO or pop-ups or something or social stuff, they'll have a plugin. So I usually don't do this. Usually when I talk about plugins, I try to stick with ones that don't have an external service. However, for some odd reason, plugins for pop-ups are really poor in WordPress for some reason. Most of the standalone plugins that just do plugin or pop-ups, the plugins that just do pop-ups, they don't have any kind of external service. They don't seem to work very well. I don't know why, but they're not reliable. They seem to have issues. So we found that kind of the most flexible, reliable pop-up and kind of social sharing thing for WordPress is Sumo. So Sumo has a plugin, you install it, but you pretty much don't even use the plugin. The plugin just sits in your website and you go to the Sumo website to manage your plugins. So it's an external service, but it has a really good pop-up system. It's great for doing pop-ups for forms to collect email addresses, or are you interested, have a pop-up, are you interested in volunteering, sign up for the next, volunteer opportunity newsletter or something like that. And for notices too, you can do a pop-up that doesn't have a form. It just says something, oh, we have a big event coming up. The thing about Sumo that's great is the forms look really, really good. And in the paid version, you can highly customize the look of those pop-ups. You can make them look just like they're part of your website, and it's really nice. So that's something definitely to look at. And so this is kind of the editor where you're kind of managing your pop-ups. So, this is the Sumo site, and it's an external site, but it works really, really well. So, and it has some social sharing features as well. This is actually part of Yoast. For some reason, that slide was out of order. So this is kind of some of the Yoast configuration, which just shows like fine-grained control over managing what search engines see when they hit your site. So I'm going to talk about, I have a couple of questions here that came up. Been looking for a plugin that would allow us to have a drop-down for US states. We can hyperlink to state pages that we currently have on a website. You could do that with Gravity Forms, actually. I would say there's probably not a plugin that handles just that. That's a pretty narrow thing, but you could easily do that probably with most form plugins. For sure, you could do that with Gravity Forms. I'm going to actually switch the polling around here. So I talked about Smashballoon earlier as sort of an external commercial kind of plugin source, a source of different plugins. So Smashballoon is a really great plugin for social content. And this is a tricky one. This is another one kind of like pop-ups where for some reason these plugins don't work really well, the ones that are not an external service. So Smashballoon is one of the few that I found really reliable. So Smashballoon will allow you to bring in content from Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all of those different social channels. It's super, super easy to set up. You can just fill out forms, and they have great instructions on how do I connect to my Facebook page, or how do I connect these accounts to my website. And it's really reliable, and it won't slow your site down. That's a big problem with pulling in content from these other areas, is it can really slow your site down. So Smashballoon and all of their social plugins have figured out how to kind of get around that by caching and saving some of that content locally. So it works really, really well. If you go in and configure it just right, it will be super fast, and it will also look just like your website. Smashballoon was one we looked at early on because it allowed a lot of control over the design, which is really important. If you have a Facebook feed on your website, or you're going to have some of your YouTube videos brought into your website, or any kind of social content, you don't want that to look completely different than the rest of your website. That's kind of weird for the viewer. It's a little jarring. You want everything to match and look like it belongs there. So Smashballoon offers some really good stylizing uh, ways to stylize it and make it really integrated. So here is just a little part of the thing. We use this a lot for custom Facebook feeds. Generally, the audience for your website, your actual website, is probably going to be larger than what you have on Facebook. If you might get 1,000 visitors a day or a week to your website and only have 150 likes on your Facebook page. So this is just a really nice way to bring in some of that social content to your website, to use it, to make people aware of it. And it can be integrated in with the rest of your content. So this is just kind of a small section of a website, which has some news, kind of a news feed and stuff. But then on the side column, since they use their Facebook for a lot of important notices, they kind of have this feed of Facebook stuff right there too. So it's just a really good way to bring social content into your site. For this particular client, it was really, really nice for them because their employees just never went to their Facebook, and a lot of their people who go to their website just never bothered to look at social. So this is a way for them to kind of show people what's happening on social without making people go there. So now we're going to get into some e-commerce things. So another one that's kind of become almost a de facto standard for commerce is WooCommerce. And WooCommerce is phenomenal because it is completely free. There actually is no paid version. You might be able to find paid plugins or paid themes. This is a very large, robust e-commerce system, so there's lots of plugins and themes specifically for it. Some of those might be paid, but WooCommerce itself is always free, and it's always has been, which is pretty incredible because just 10, 15 years ago, you could spend $1 million building an online store. And so it's free, customizable. It has really powerful features to do a lot of different kinds of commerce, different kinds of selling, although it is very simple just to set up and use and manage. And there's a lot of themes built specifically for it. And there's a lot of plugins specifically for it, which is really cool if you're going to do an auction or do ship a different way or do shipping and pickup or however you want to do different things. There's a lot of options here for that. And the sites that you build with it look really, really nice. This is just one example. So out of the box, just with not doing anything fancy or crazy, you get a very good shopping cart e-commerce experience. Really pretty much just as good as any major store out there. And then it can be highly customized as well. So we recently did something for Simpson Housing. So Simpson Housing is a fantastic local nonprofit that deals with trying to end homelessness. They had a huge event plan. They had a big event plan, which was an art auction. It was called Art for Shelter. So they're selling local artists art, taking that money and housing people. And they didn't want to cancel that. So we actually spun up in, I think, less than a week, an entire e-commerce solution for them to sell the art on their website, right on their website, because they had to cancel their event. And it went great. It was a huge success. And just the speed and ease of using WooCommerce is phenomenal. And that's pretty much what saved that fundraiser for them. So definitely look out WooCommerce if you want to do any kind of online selling of any kind. So it looks like we're getting more Q&As too. That's good. We'll answer those as we go along. Let's see. So we're going to talk now about some donation stuff. So a lot of people use a donation platform that's kind of separate. It's some type of other giving platform. Maybe you use Blackbot or a huge system like that, or maybe use a smaller one. But they'll usually have sort of just an iframe or a piece of code you kind of paste into your website, and then you can do your donation stuff on your website. Or maybe it's a link that goes to this other donation platform, but that you can kind of style the page. So what this is, though, this is a plugin where all the donation stuff happens in your website and you have total control over it. So this is not a third-party system. This is a plugin. And it's free. There's a paid version, but the free version is amazing, and it's highly, highly customizable. So installing it, you can do really basic, easy donation stuff, super easy. You know, donate $500, blah, 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 really easy. Or you can do really advanced, complicated things in fundraisers where you have different levels to donate at. Or you can do like sustaining, I'm going to donate once a week, once a month, once a year, all these scheduled donations, legacy donations, tribute donations. It's really cool. So it has a ton of plugins for it as well. And it works with pretty much all the major payment processors out there. So this is a really cool way to have a super robust donation system right into your website. So this is I would say better than sort of the really lightweight Gravity Forms plus PayPal. You could kind of replicate what GiveWP does with that, but it'd be much, much harder. This is a better solution. So I had a question. Will you be able to share the site? So this entire webinar will be available on demand later, and the follow-up email you get will list the links to every single one of these plugins and every single website we're talking about. So that will all be in there. I had a question about seamless donations. I'm not familiar with that one, although I'll check that out. So can donation data from GiveWP or other things be brought into Salesforce? Yes, it can. There is probably a plugin, I haven't looked at that yet, but there's probably a plugin for GiveWP that may automatically push the data to Salesforce. However, if you can't do that, you absolutely can export your information from GiveWP and import it into anything you want. I think that that's not ideal. It's ideal to have an automatic connection. However, keep in mind that huge platforms like Blackbaud, Salesforce, these other things, they sometimes will charge you a little more to have data automatically put in there. I have a customer spending thousands of dollars a month purely on Salesforce syncing between their other platforms. So it probably can be done, but there may be a cost to it. So take a look at GiveWP if you want a system inside of your website. So this is just an example of what you can do with your donation forms. There's many options for what type of donation you're doing. And then the actual content management of that, what shows up for people donating, and the form building is really nice too. I would say it's on par with Gravity Forms. So it's very cool. I got another question, it looks like here, about events. Actually, I'll talk a little bit more about events being canceled. Someone asked about, have you helped nonprofits with canceled events? I actually have. I've done several. And the last webinar I did was called Storytelling for Nonprofits, and I actually go into detail how we are bringing our nonprofit clients physical events into the virtual space because they had to be canceled. So if you go to our events page, that is available for on demand. But definitely check that out. If we have time, I'll talk a little bit more about that.